childhood has been in a very remote part of West Bengal, as you can say. Um, it's in a small village named Rupnarampur. So, but I was born in Trivandrum. I have a very complicated family. My father is a Bengali, so my predominantly childhood and my schooling has been in there. My mother is a Malayali, so I born there, but my parents and my other extended relatives are there as well. Uh, so yeah, pretty much my childhood has been there in the small town where my parents used to work. So, as you said, the early influences are, of course, for any person would be their teachers. So, teachers have been a key part to this entire journey from every stages, though. You get fascinated from small little things, and then it draws out. It has drawn out for me in this my case in science and science related nuances, and finally it has grown into something which I can't even wouldn't even dreamt about. So yes. No, actually, to be fair, I had initial my when I was in fourth grade or a third grade when everybody wants to be different things. I usually imagined myself to be growing as a civil servant. Actually, started that journey by reading many books, and I was quite into that. So I was quite into having information about current knowledge and all those bits. Apparently that was my reading newspapers, collecting informations and sorts. I never thought that I would, instead of going into an IPS or an IAS, I thought I always dreamt of doing that. But apparently in everything changed when you enter the teenage. Things start changing, and there's a grown interest. So at that time, I think I have more interest towards nuclear chemistry. That was the first thing that I always liked. And I was very interested, drawn towards, say, for example, stories about Bermuda Triangle, even though that's like a false kind of statement or a hypothesis. There's so many things that's false about it, the narrative itself. But again, as a teenager or as a child, you're fascinated towards all these kind of conspiracy theories, because it's related to science, or something as simple as why the sky is blue, or why does it change its colors when it dawns or when the sun sets. So those teeny tiny details actually fascinates. And even a simple phenomena like lightning, you see the light first and the sound later. All these things, even though they are small bits and pieces, but as a child your curiosity is actually quite high. And as we go into our adulthood, we think that I always believe that our curiosity somehow get repressed because of society. So but as a child I was very curious about these questions, and somehow the answers came through chemistry or some sort of physics. Or as I always say, that chemistry is always a central science, even though people believe to be different in different aspect. If you have knowledge on something to do with biology or a biotechnology or a something, or even a physics, you have to learn some sort of a chemistry at the end of the day. So I believe that like chemistry is fundamental in that aspect, and those answers have led me to the chemistry. And finally I've left my dreams of becoming a civil servant and more more drawn towards fundamental chemistry. And I think nanoscience and nanotechnology was not the quite a term that was used back in the days when I was in, not too far, but still 10 years or 11 years back when I was in college. It was not something which is pretty much common amongst us. It's been grown, it's been growing, and things have started to take shape in form, like where science have evolved, and and more focus have gone through technologies which is driven at a nano dimension. And so you are pretty much working in that aspect indirectly or directly. But in my case, my preliminary degree, whether it is my master's and my PhD, has been always nanoscience and nanotechnology. uh, uh, I think this teachers, your school teachers, your teachers in the initial are all, in my case, have played a role, a very very important role. I cannot imagine life where they have not played. Even my secondary school teacher, whether it is a chemistry or a physics teacher, they knew that I'm going to do something in chemistry. Some many of them wanted to me to choose different careers, but definitely they knew that I'm going to do something in chemistry. And apart from that, parents, even though they didn't come from a science background, they were pretty much an accounts or an arts person, but they really helped me in navigating those pressurizing situation where people are drawn towards engineering and medical, and there was too much of peer pressure that goes around when you are in school, and when you have so many people around yourself going into these competitive exams. And on the other hand, you are choosing or opting not to do any of it and focus your entire energy towards a basic science curriculum. It's quite a peer pressure down there, but in that case my parents just put their foot down, as you can say, and then helped me in navigating through. They did just allowed me to pursue what I felt was right for myself. So yeah, parents and teachers are the key contributors in this case. Okay. I work on something called energy and environmental for nanomaterials for energy and environmental applications. But right now, my PhD students and myself, we are concentrated on working on something as sensors. So we work on printed and flexible sensors which are degradable, and we want to make sustainable choices in our approach. And we are trying to make these sensors which could be used for any lame person and accessible by loads of people for different applications, whether it is for pH monitoring in the soil, or whether it is measuring glucose in a day to day activity, or even if right now we are trying to make a pesticide based sensor. So yes, our predominantly work is focused on sensor, but again, one or two PhD students, they also work on energy based materials where we are trying to make degradable and sustainable supercapacitors which can actually function these sensors as a modular unit. So yeah, this is some of the work that I'm doing at present. And I always we have this discussion amongst ourselves within our groups. uh, I believe, not to sound rude about Elon Musk, but as Musk say that to thrive as a human species, we need to be extraterrestrial. We can't just be in this one. The odds are quite high in that case. It's quite against us because the resources are limited, and with the growing population and the demands that's always rising every day, even though every one of us start to make a sustainable choice, still the resources will be less at some point or the other. And being just winding up in just one planet is always making keeping everything, like it's a saying, like you keeping everything in one basket. You just have to have multiple choices. So I think in another 20 years we're going to see fascinating discoveries and fascinating advancement in the space, especially in Mars, which I think, like saying sensors, the gas sensors that we are trying to make is a small step towards that. We think that that could be inserted in those small rovers, which can help us to measure the different levels of, say, ammonia or carbon dioxide or methane levels across different parts of the Mars. So extraterrestrial is the way to go. Again, climate change is inevitable. We have made a mess in the last uh, 5 odd decades, and we can't go back to fix it. The choices that we make as an individual in everyday life matters, and we need to start somewhere. So I think we should start somewhere. Even that could be, say, for example, the choice of using a compostable sanitary napkin. you know it's a very simple as that, because the amount of microplastic that dumps into the water is unfathomable. So even that, those kind of small teeny tiny steps can even change. It's a small step. It doesn't cost too much, but again, it's the effort that you as an individual want to make, from moving from, say, a traditional napkin to a compostable napkins. the obvious kind of the work that I can tell you about, it's not in full-fledged manner yet, but we are trying to develop, say for example, a nicotine detecting sensor, which is in a work phase at the moment. But it's there right now. Teenagers are prone to vaping. So, and there is 1 in 12 adults in our society, especially in underage adults, are vaping. So it's a new kind of phenomena that we have moved from cigarettes to vaping habits. And in my case, we are trying to use our sensors to detect illegal nicotine in these vapes, because the vapes do there are too many illegal vapes, as you can say, because the vapes have high amount of nicotine, which instead of making you going away from cigarettes, it helps you again make you addict of those vapes itself. On the other hand, there are several vapes that are sold in the market with 0% nicotine, and on the other hand, it's quite a high level of it. So that's one of the application based kind of work that I'm doing at the moment. But there are others, for example, use of pH based sensors which are being deployed, or flexible based sensors which are used in for measuring pH in for digital, as part of digital agriculture, you can say. um, the gas sensors are again good example, where it could be used for monitoring at different industrial applications, wherever there is a it's a more of a flexible, disposable, and then it's a easy use and throw kind of sensor. So again, you do not want to commit into the electronic waste cycle, because the kind of electronic waste that we generate every year as a combined population is quite high. So even though these electronics, we try to make them, or tend to make sure that these are more sustainable and they are degradable and compostable at the end of the day. As professional journeys start, they all start from your house. So even making the choice of in my case, when I completed my masters and wanted to pursue to PhD, my parents did not had an issue. But uh, if you are 23, 24, and you want to travel half the globe to a new place where you don't know anyone, you don't have any kind of a big support out there, you don't have parents who are just come from a very middle class family, so you tend to um you have too many those kind of obstacles, as you can say. So my extended family, who had too many opinions about of sending women, especially sending girls, rather in this case, um, sending little girls half of the globe without any security, as they termed it. It was quite nerve wracking for them, but for me it always remained an adventure. It was I wouldn't shy away from saying it was difficult, definitely. It wasn't that easy as it sounds. Catching the first flight away from home is always a difficult task, and then landing into a country on a December month, when it is always dark, with no lights at all, and then raining all the time, yeah, and cold, definitely cold, can't miss that out. Is always, again, I was not averse from cold, it's just that the absence of light was quite a challenge, because you need to physically handle that, mentally accept that fact that you're not going to see you're going to have only sunlight till 10, from 10 to 2 p.m., and then the rest is always dark. And I ended up in a small town of Sligo, where things are not that happening. It's not bustling like Dublin, or bustling like London, where you had too much of nightlife, or rather it was a quiet little town. And but the university was great, my supervisor was great, but so getting into that zone itself was a quite a lot of struggle for me as professionally. But I think I hung there. I got a hang of what was happening, and I quickly became quite acclimatized to the situation. And entirely, you as a human always want to you adapt, so I easily adapted to the situation, try to understand the Irish accent itself, the kind of slangs they do use, because that itself is quite interesting, because you don't understand what your colleagues are actually saying. And when I ended up in the institute, there was only two of us Indians in the entire institute, so that itself was quite a challenge, because you don't have too many faces that looks like you. Forget about brown faces altogether, you don't have any other minority communities representing. But now things have changed quite a lot from there. The university, which is now the university has been renamed now, ATU, has grown up and is thriving with quite a lot of research, and people with multi diverse community is there. So I think it's good to see that kind of thing. On the other hand, with other professional, there are so many things as a woman, that sometimes you get patronized while you are in a meeting, or some there is a big kind of a meetings which I've usually attend, and there's too many men who try to explain things, uh, imagining that you are unaware to the facts. And in my case, the issues that I struggle even in day to day life, in still in as a lecturer, is my age, because I'm too young for the position which I am. And sometimes people don't accept me to be a professor, and sometimes I, as people say, that I need to dress up properly so that I can be distinguished amongst the students and from the other professors, because it's a common mistake, I guess, because people are, when you come to London, you expect a old white male professor to address you, but at the end of the day you are seeing a brown under 30, a kind of a lady roaming around and explaining stuff. So no, nobody wants to you to dress up, but actually I take that additional step, because I have been in positions where people have mistaken my identity at some of the times, because as you know that UK is a thriving hub of Indian students. So they commonly mistake me as a student, and some of them don't take me seriously in those aspects. So sometimes I need to dress up, instead of just, I can't just wear a t-shirt and just go down to the class, because that might appear to be too casual for them. But on the other hand, if this was some other male professors, it would be completely acceptable. So sometimes I think maybe, so I was talking to my colleagues, I said that maybe two or three white hairs would be a good idea to have at this time, because that would make me a little bit older and make me quite settled down for the role, I wonder. I think inclusivity is one of the key things, especially in the university in London Met, where we take inclusivity very seriously. We always believe in the fact that when you see something, you want to be that. So if you don't, if these students don't see a brown face, or a person from their an Indian origin out there doing the kind of work that I'm doing, they wouldn't get the confidence to what they can achieve. So once you get to see someone that they this is achievable, then it becomes much more, when they see something, it becomes much more sensible in that aspect. And the second thing is that uh, we as a, especially in our department, we have taken this effort that when we teach something, we give explanation of apart from, you always have these old white men, whether it is any, you open up any chemistry or physics books, you are taught about them. Unfortunately or fortunately, our 19th century, all the sciences are being done by them, so we can't rewrite history, so we have to teach about them. But again, we don't want to shy away from giving examples of other leading researchers who come from these minority or come from these diverse background, whether it is a black lady, whether it is a brown professor, a Middle Eastern professor, or say, for example, an Indian professor doing good kind of or new research into the field, and they are in a well established region, but again nobody knows about them. So we want to actively keep those examples within our subject discussion. So when we are teaching, say for example, just a basic organic chemistry, we want to discuss those diverse kind of organic chemists, so that our students see those faces when they are discussing, say, a reaction or any kind of examples. So they get to see all those kind of faces apart from the white old men. But again, there's no harm in discussing white old men, but we can also show the other new professors that are in doing the same or a better work these days. Let us put it that way. Oh, mentoring is extremely important, because I feel, because I'm being mentored by so many people throughout the years, whether it is by, I've been mentored by excellent supervisors. So it gives you a kind of leadership quality, because you get to navigate individual's life, and not to put in a small terms, because that's a quite a lot of work, because you are putting that effort, and the kind of things that you get back, it's not just the it's not monetary aspect or any of it, but it's just the amount of satisfaction that you get, the self satisfaction that you get to see when the person is doing well, or when they do reach at a different position. It's a different kind of satisfaction which cannot be imagined. And overall, there are multiple facets for it. Like for example, the kind of you get to see a different opinion, because this person, when you try to get a feedback from them, you get to get a different feedback from that person, because you might not even realize the kind of shade or the different kind of an attitude you have towards a kind of a topic. But a feedback from your mentee is always going to be important in that regards. The feedback process again helps you to grow personally, so that's always a helpful, and it's a two-way street, so it's important for every both the mentor and the mentee to go through that street, and it's a give and take relationship in that aspect. But overall, the personal growth, both for the both parties, is something which is quite important, and it cannot be accounted for. Ooh, that's I always say this thing to my PhD students as well, because this has been gone through generation, because this is was given from my PhD supervisor, Suresh C. Pillai. So he said always that your mental health comes first any day. It doesn't matter how good researcher you are, how many papers you publish, doesn't matter how many patents you get, how many discoveries you do. It doesn't matter any of it. Your mental health, your family takes precedence any day over anything. Your mental health is like a glass bowl. It is. And the analogy is that your health is something like a glass bowl. Once it's shattered, you cannot glue it, you can glue it back, but the cracks are going to be always evident throughout your life. So you have to make sure that your mental health remains sound, and any kind of a trauma or anything, you need to talk to people, you need to talk to relevant people, rather than talking to friends, family. That won't help. It would end up as a gossip rather than it. He always suggested this. So I now I tell the same thing to my PhD students. The first time I meet them, I say this thing the first, because I don't care how many publications you have. If your mental health is not sound, you're not going to be an effective researcher at the end of the day. I think badminton has been always something which I've been I always like, so I do that. And then I read a lot. So it's always been a source of calmness, and it gets me away from, like, reading books, not my subject. Reading some non-fictional books and stuff, especially on still on something recently on, say, for India China foreign policy, something boring like that, but still those boring topics, something completely different. So those things, I'm not a fiction reading person, so I like non-fiction books, which is much more relevant, and it informs my overall information gathering, as you can say. Oof, the most proud of, I think I'm proud of as being a good daughter, I'm not proud of. I have quite a lot of awards and as such, but again, I'm happy that my parents are happy with my achievements, because um, they are not the sharpest or the smartest person in any room, but they, when they see me growing, they think themselves growing as well. So see that smile, and even to see when they smiled and they had a big kind of an expression, and uh, makes me feel proud. That's the time I feel proud, not any time else. I try to avoid all the kind of glitz and glamour from these kind of things, except for sometimes I need to post things in LinkedIn just for the networking purposes. But otherwise, I totally am a very shy person in general, so I shy away from discussing these. But it's only my siblings who go and share all these details to my parents, and that's when I sense a feel of, or a sense of proud moment for myself, when I see them smiling and being happy. uh, I think I've seen this question in when I wrote this thing up. I was thinking at that time, what would what would I give myself an advice. I think as a child, I was quite confident that I, as in general, I was not somebody who's like shy in talking or being a pro, but I always wanted that everything is going to be fine. I always had self doubts. So a 16-year-old want, if had the kind of vision, if some kind of predictions was there, i, I couldn't even imagine that I'm talking to you at this time of the of night and giving you an explanation. So I would always say that be confident, and don't doubt your choices, because self doubts as a teenager because of peer pressure is quite a high. And I'm thank god I didn't do any other IITs, or say all the other things which parents always, as a rat race you go in. Thank god I chose what I did, and I didn't self doubt my choices at that point. So this is a quote that I always use whenever I publish a book, whenever I write even my thesis. All the theses have this quote. It's from Marie Curie. I always believed in that. Is that first principle is that never get beaten by yourself or by any circumstances. You have to go up. There could be problematic situations, but you need to work towards it. There's nothing as unsolvable. So you just can't whine and sit down. So you just have to try to solve the problem. That's always been my key towards it.